Hi, I'm Savannah Hooker, VP of Mortgage Lending at A&N Mortgage, and welcome to the Road to Number One podcast series. I'm super excited to take you behind the scenes of a really important woman's life that has influenced me and my career. So please welcome Neena Vlamis, our first guest.
Yay.
Hi, Neena.
Hi, Savannah. Welcome to your own show.
I'm really grateful that you made time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me. Today, I want to talk about something that you talk to me about a lot, which is becoming a self-made millionaire. And I want you to share your story on how you did that and what you're doing now that you have financial freedom in your life. Can you set the scene for us a little bit of where you grew up, how you grew up, what that kind of looks like?
Sure. So I grew up in Downers Grove, and which is right down the street from where we're filming. We're in Hinsdale in our kitchen, which is really fun to have you guys here today. And what happened when I was younger, we grew up pretty much middle class, I would say, lower middle class in Downers Grove, and our house was small. It was probably 1,100 or 1,200 square feet. My mom still lives in that house.
Wow.
It took us a long time to understand the concept of money and growth. My father came from India, and my mom came from a small town in Minnesota, and they met right across the street in our park, like on Webster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they grew up, like I think it was 440 West Webster, actually. And they met. My mom said she felt sorry for my dad. He was the building manager, and he came here, at 18 years old with probably $5 in his pocket.
Wow.
Typical story, right?
Yeah.
Went to college here. They met. She got off the farm in Minnesota, and he, instead of having to pay rent, was the building maintenance man while he was in college. And then she was a nurse's assistant at Grant Hospital, which is no longer there. It's condos, and that's where my brother and I were born.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And then she, if I'm not to put words in your mouth, but she ended up working in the mortgage industry, and that's how you were exposed to that, right?
Yep.
So she's kind of who started your passion for real estate. But like when you were a younger adult, what kind of jobs were you doing? Like what was your work life before?
So when I was 16, I went to nail school. And the reason I went to nail school was so I could make a consistent income through college, high school and college, without having to work for somebody else. That was a big deal for me. I wanted to have my own hours, and I wanted to, really expand my horizon. And I think I was an entrepreneur from a very young age. Mm-hmm. And that really set the course for me. So I was able to pay for myself growing up, as much as my parents helped, they helped as much as they could, right? Yeah. So I think it was important to make your own way, pay for yourself, and be an independent person.
When did you start in the mortgage industry?
So I started in the mortgage, and I wanted to be a college professor. I have 12 hours left to finish that.
No way. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I have 12 hours left, and I will never finish, unfortunately. But I thought it would be a great idea to be a teacher. I love coaching people. I love helping people. I love teaching people. That has always been a passion of mine, is helping others. But my dad, they kept saying, you're not going to make any money. You're not going to make any money. You need to go into sales. And that's the reason that I went into sales.
Okay.
So I switched. My first corporate job was at Marshall and Isley Bank.
How old were you?
I think I was 24. I was 24. Yeah, 24. And I was the bank rep. So I was the receptionist, the processor, and then was promoted quickly to becoming a bank rep.
Okay.
I don't think I was there for very long, because then I opened A&N a couple years later.
Yeah. Okay,
Not knowing much, but yeah, I did it.
So I guess, not to get too personal, but what did your financial life look like back then? Were you did you have a lot of money from your family? Had you already built up to making a lot of consistent income, or were you living paycheck to paycheck?
So when I was younger, because I did nails, I saved my checks and paid for my clothes, my car, everything like that, mm-hmm. housing. And then what I did was I ate a lot of peanut butter and jelly. I did not eat out a lot at all. I met Dean when I was 25, and we got married pretty quickly after that. And then when it was time to open A&N, I was like, well, I had money saved, borrowed some money from my mom, and then opened up the company, which was very nice of her. My parents have been very supportive of that, and being mainly fearless, right? Because before, I was able to do that before children. Mm-hmm. I think if I had children and all that, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I definitely saved a lot of money. The first thing that I did after I opened up my Roth IRAs was I got life insurance policy, a term life insurance policy, and I started kind of backwards with my life, starting with my funeral, which I know is very morbid and very strange. But I never want anybody to have to pay for me, and I don't want to feel that I have to be supported by somebody else. So I started that way. And then I went from the life insurance policies to whole life, variable life, and I have a mixture of policies. And I think the policies have done a lot for me financially. Because you're able to borrow off the cash value of the policies when you want to buy something or when you need to do something.
Yeah.
I also picked up my first real estate at 24, and then I bought a second one at 25. So those were, putting low down payment down and just getting into the property, stressing out about it, sleepless nights, but I knew I could do it and I knew how to manage it. And I think that was the start. I wanted to be so badly a self-made millionaire by the age of 30. That was my number one goal.
Yeah, and do you think that real estate helped you accomplish that for sure?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And one thing that you always talk about is, I know a lot of people feel differently about this, but did you buy those properties in your name? Did you buy them with Dean? Like, how did you make that decision, and why do you think that it's important?
So how Dean and I often buy our properties is separate. The reason we buy things separately is because we have more buying power. So your debt to income ratio is higher when you're combined on notes, right? So I think that it's better when you buy them separate, but again, that's for me. Your story, everybody else's story, and what your family needs are to be different. Everybody's different. So it depends. For me, picking up a couple properties, I put them in a trust and then manage those. Made sure when we got married that he was okay with those properties going to the children. Obviously he was, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how those properties are set up.
How often do you buy property, and how do you know you're ready to buy another property?
So I get bored easily. That's when I know I need to buy something. My accountant always says that to me. Oh my gosh, you got bored, didn't you? And then you go out and you buy something. And I think putting down just a little bit of money, making sure it cash flows is key. If I have some, I'm commission based, right? So if I have extra, then I will always pay it down. When I was 25, I was very nervous about taking out like a 15-year fixed. So I did a 30-year, then I did a 20, then I did a 15, and now at my age, most of the rental properties are paid off.
That's
so you're
great.
just cash flowing.
Yeah.
That is not the best strategy for everybody. Again, that is not, you have to look at the interest rates and you have to decide what is best. You have to talk to your financial planner and your mortgage team, because that does not always make sense, especially if you're paying income tax on some of those rentals. For me, it was an accomplishment and I wanted it out of the way.
Yeah. So outside of retirement, life insurance, real estate, is there anything else that you feel like investing in as soon as possible is like made you more wealth? Yeah.
Retirement. Your 401k, you always want to max out your 401k. Whether your employer matches or not, it is tax-free money. It's the best thing that you can do for yourself. If you are like overwhelmed by the amount of percentage that you put in, don't put that much in, but put something in. You have to pay yourself first. If you don't pay yourself first, you're just going to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Yeah. So to flip the script a little bit, we've talked about your journey. I want to use someone like me as an example, and maybe people that are listening. What tangible things or kind of like a game plan would you give to someone like me I'm 25 years old, to accomplish getting closer to being a self-made millionaire by 30?
I think you're a very good listener at the things that I've been coaching you on, right?
Yeah.
So we started off with an intern. Savannah was an intern, right? And then pushing the limits and saying you can do this, right? So you started off by networking. Then your network is your net worth. Your network is literally your net worth. So the more people you know, the more supported you are, the kind and professional people that we are. And you're always thinking you have to do good by people. So the more good you do, the more money you end up making, because you're helping the communities and you're helping people. So for you, I would say you're doing everything. You bought your property. You added some whole life insurance policies. Now you're going to cross-collateralize with Dion, right, your husband, and make sure that he has enough policies. I think one thing that affected me negatively was 9/11, and watching all of those families. It was a catastrophe, right? So not only did these people die, but then the ramifications months later when there was no money for their mortgage payments because they didn't have the proper life insurance set up was devastating. So making sure you're protecting your family in the worst case possible is huge for success.
And I think maybe I love life insurance, and it's funny because both my parents I grew up with my parents both working at State Farm. was very lucky to grow up around life insurance conversation, and we just happen to be so similar in that way. Could you explain to someone who's like, I think people listening to this are like, I'm single, I don't have kids, why would I buy life insurance? So like, speak to those people that are listening. Like, why is whole life insurance at a young age so important? And why do they call it the rich person's Roth?
It's the best thing ever.
It's the best thing ever.
Yeah, it's the best thing ever. So life insurance is important because you're using it as an asset. So there's 3 types that mainly, just let's start with 3. There's others, but there's term life insurance. So on a term life insurance, you're literally die and the other person you left the money to gets the money. There's variable, which is tied to the stock market. And then there's whole life insurance. Whole life insurance is typically the best type of life insurance if you can afford to have it. Even if you can do, but even if you can do $150 a month at a young age, you're going to have returns on that. But why it's so good is because you can borrow against the cash value.
Yeah.
So Disney borrowed against the cash value to open up Disney. I borrowed against the cash value to buy my building on Armitage and Elston.
Yeah.
And paid myself back, right? So the loan, when you take out a loan eventually against those policies, you're literally just paying yourself back. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah. When I was like 3 years old, my parents inherited some money, like $5,000, nothing crazy, and bought me a whole term life insurance policy. And right now it's worth like $9,000. And I'm not doing anything. And even if I borrowed half of that and died, like there's still a death benefit attached to it. It's really cool. And I think we're very aligned on that. Anything else that you would say outside of like networking, retirement, investing in real estate, anything else we're missing? How to bring in more income? Like, I guess being in a sales-based job is helpful because you're in control of that a little bit more.
I definitely think sales, because there's no ceiling, right? In sales, so you put out what you get back. So the more energy you put into meeting people and networking and talking to people and helping people, the more help you give them, the more they're going to refer you back.
Totally. All right, I have a handful of questions from Instagram, so let's see what the people want to hear. 1 second. Okay.
How do I look?
Okay. Did you have a mentor, and how could somebody find a mentor to help them financially?
My mentor is Millie Rosenblum. She helped me from the very beginning of my career. Even before I opened A&N Mortgage, I met with her, and she has always been a great mentor. I also have Maria Duchess, and Maria Duchess has been doing a ton of M&A with physical therapy places. So I think finding a mentor that you like, so somebody that's probably a little bit more mature than you, I would say, doesn't necessarily mean they have to be older than you, but more mature and have had some life experiences and is willing to spend time and give you open, transparent advice. So finding it in your network and asking people around is the key, but you have to stay consistent with the mentor or it's pointless.
Yeah, and I think regardless, making it a point to be in close proximity to someone that you look up to and that you can trust, that has your best interest, I've found that to change. It's changed my life for sure.
I would agree.
Thank you. Okay. We talked about how you diversify your investments. What are you doing now that you have some financial freedom?
So I didn't have financial freedom before. I literally, when Deena and I moved from the city out to Hinsdale, we had saved every last dollar that we had. And I think in hindsight, I would have bought a bigger house sooner because it would have made the family a lot happier because it would have had more room. So I think one of my regrets is not thinking of that sooner. I was so focused on saving all the money. We literally lit the stove with a match and we realized that we needed a new stove. But when we moved out, the kids moved in here to the house in Hinsdale and they're like, where are the matches? I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, you don't need to be that frugal in life, you know? And it was not the best mindset, I think.
So now you're able to enjoy things like a stove.
Like a stove that works, yeah.
But also,
in a beautiful home. I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, I don't know obviously everything about your wealth, but I assume if you wanted to retire, you could, but you're choosing not to. Why is that?
I love working and I love the people around me and coaching the people up to be better people that, can give back to others is my life, you know? I can't imagine doing nothing all day.
Yeah, I agree. This is a good one. This is the last question. How are you using your wealth to improve the lives and conditions of others?
I give back to the people that work for me, and I give back to the clients that I have, right? So the commission that we often work for is a lot less than other lenders, and I think that's why we have lower interest rates. I give back to you a lot and all the young people and new people in our office that are wanting to learn and grow. And I think that is the key to being kind and professional has brought good things.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I feel like you invest in people you see potential in, not only people, like everyone, but I just feel very fortunate that you've invested in me, not like even financially, but just spending time with me on a Saturday to film a video. Like, you don't have to do that, and I really appreciate that you do. And thank you for sharing all of that with
And this is your journey to becoming a self-made millionaire, and I'm very happy you're doing this.
I hope we can sit down in 5 years and say that it happened.
Yeah, it will. It will happen.
Okay. Thank you, Neena.
Thank you.
Oh, the awkward hug.